Attention, attention. I'm warning you that you're at the Hungarian border.
Hungary is banking on the reverse of the motto, if you build it, they will come. It's spending almost $100 million to erect a second fence to keep out migrants and refugees who are in neighbouring Serbia. And so far, it's working. Last year, 5,700 people were caught crossing illegally in this district.
The building of the second fence started in March, and since then, the migration push has stopped in this section of the border.
This is both an EU and Schengen zone frontline, and even with a second fence, there will continue to be constant patrols. There's little sympathy for refugees who try to enter through these fields.
I don't understand why they leave their home. We don't leave our home.
Hungarian authorities are allowing just 10 asylum seekers to enter from Serbia each weekday. Anyone aged 14 years or older will be placed into one of 2 container camps, including this one, while their claim is being processed. The government says it's not detention because people are free to leave via a gate back to Serbia at any time. Just a few kilometres from the border is the heart of Tompa, a quiet, unassuming town. Its locals support the government's moves to keep refugees out.
On the one hand, I pity them. On the other hand, not. Because we heard many things about them, that they hurt people, committed killings, so we don't like them.
Because they are in poverty, they are fleeing from their bad destiny. That's what I think.
During the 2015 refugee crisis, more than 400,000 people crossed through Hungary. 2 years on, and those numbers have gone down sharply, but the political messaging around migration has not.
Migration turned out to be the Trojan horse of terrorism. Migration turned out to be an awful solution to labor shortages. Migration turned out to be more and more an NGO business.
The government is interested in keeping this on the agenda, on the top of the agenda all the time. They create these news, these happenings in order to convince the media that they should not talk about anything else, just the refugee issues and just the Hungarian government's fight against Brussels.
The Orban government has introduced mandatory detention for all asylum seekers. The European Commission's Vice President, Frans Timmermans, says the new asylum law raises serious doubts about compatibility with EU law. The UN's Refugee Agency has also told European Union states to stop sending asylum seekers back to Hungary. I asked to speak to one of the Hungarian Helsinki Committee's asylum seeker clients, but in the current environment, none wanted to go on camera.
There is no asylum anymore in Hungary. Refugees, should they come from war, from torture, from persecution, may not find protection in this EU member state.
One aspect of migration the country is investing in is training more people to patrol the border, to give the nation greater control over who enters. These kinds of measures have political support, including from the opposition nationalist party Jobbik.
The whole of Europe just seems to have gone insane with this Willkommenskultur and this liberal obsession with multiculturalism. If we don't manage to come to terms with this migration in a way which is suitable for everybody living in Europe, there is going to be complete chaos, and our whole continent and our whole civilization is going to collapse.
Hungary has set a hard course on migration policy. And many people in the EU are concerned it may prove a tempting model for other states in the bloc to follow. Natalie Pohanen, the Newsmakers in Budapest.
Well, joining me now from Brussels is Catherine Woolard. She's the Secretary General of the European Council on Refugees and Exiles. And in Budapest, Kitty McKenzie. She's the Senior Communications Officer of the UNHCR in Hungary. Thanks both of you for joining us. Catherine Woolard, good fences make good neighbours, I guess, for the Hungarians. They've doubled down. They've got their second fence down as they fortify themselves for the summer? Do they need it?
Well, I think that begs the question, what are they protecting themselves against? Vulnerable people who need international protection. We're highly concerned that these measures violate both EU and international law. What we're seeing at the Hungarian border are systematic violations, including pushbacks of people into Serbia, which is not a safe third country for them.
Kitty McKenzie, has this put you in a difficult position representing UNHCR in Hungary? They're not keen on refugees or migrants at all. Your very nature, you're designed to help refugees. How do you go about doing your job?
What I think is sad that we heard in this report is that there's a great deal of confusion. Sometimes it's being promoted intentionally about who refugees are. I heard in that report, I don't leave my home, why would they leave their home? It's important to remember that the asylum seekers in Hungary come from Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq. These are 3 countries at war. Nobody wants to be a refugee. So these people are fleeing for their very lives. They didn't choose to flee. I think that's really important to remember. And what we're trying to do here in Hungary, we acknowledge that Hungary has a right to control its borders, to secure its borders. What we're trying to safeguard is the very right to claim asylum. This is a basic human right.
And Kitty, are they breaking the law? Are they breaking international standards and international law by putting people in shipping containers and denying refugees or asylum seekers the right to actually seek asylum? Kitty?
Hungary has systematically dismantled its asylum system, and denying the right to claim asylum is violating international human rights law. And one thing that is particularly disturbing is putting children into detention automatically simply for seeking asylum. And it's very disturbing that in these shipping containers on the border, some 40% of the people detained in these shipping containers are children.
Wow, 40%. Well, I wonder, Catherine, what you think of what the Interior Ministry State Secretary Karoli Contrat said. He said, and I'm going to quote him, by defending its borders, Hungary is also defending the Schengen zone. That's Karoli Contrat, Hungary's Interior Ministry State Secretary. Is that true that they're defending Schengen by being tough on their border?
Our concern is more that Hungary is undermining EU values and EU law. I think this is the real threat that the EU faces, is systemic undermining of the rule of law. We don't face a threat from refugees. Indeed, Europe could easily manage the numbers of people arriving. I think we've been arguing for tough measures to be taken against Hungary, including the European Commission starting infringement procedures for the new law on asylum, which is a clear violation of EU and international law. If other member states and the Commission don't start to get tough with Hungary, we have to raise the issue of complicity. And as you say, it may be that others want Hungary to be doing their dirty business at the borders.
But that's the paradox, isn't it, Catherine? Because if EU states, member states, other member states, particularly more powerful member states, get tough on Hungary, they can turn to their people and say, you see, these people don't take in refugees, we have to deal with the brunt, and now they want to punish us. Whereas in a democracy, there's a popular consensus to be tough on refugees. Our reporter found there as well, there was a lot of popular support for their tough policies.
Well, this is hardly surprising after the years of negative portrayal of refugees by the Hungarian government. I think this should raise the alarm bells in other member states. We're particularly concerned, of course, about the rise of the extreme right, but I think a greater threat is when mainstream parties start to adopt the rhetoric and analysis of the extremes. And this is essentially what's happened with Fidesz, which was a reasonable, moderate party and has now become a party that incites racial hatred and incites violations against refugees. I think our concern is also that the idea of the copycat effect. We're already seeing Poland suggesting measures such as the use of containers at the border, which follow the Hungarian model. This is why, exactly why tougher a tougher approach to Hungary is necessary. There is a rule of law mechanism which was designed after a report in 2013 into wider human rights questions within Hungary. That could be used. We might eventually see an Article 7 procedure whereby Hungary's voting rights in the European Council will be suspended. I think other member states are fooling themselves if they think it's in their interest to allow Hungary and Orbán, the Hungarian government, to get away with these measures. We've seen Hungary, in fact, undermine the potential for a European solution to the crisis by refusing to go ahead with relocation measures and indeed challenging relocation. And the only way that Europe can collectively manage the situation with the arrival of refugees, of people who need international protection, is to have a system based on solidarity and division of responsibilities among the member states. And it's exactly this that Hungary is blocking.
Kitty, do you also fear that sort of copycat contagion where the likes of Poland and other countries will want to do what Hungary has been doing?
We're already seeing that, exactly as Catherine said, in Poland. I think there are two issues here. One is the rhetoric of the Hungarian government, but some of it is founded that Hungary wants to crack down on being a transit country, and this is a issue that needs to be tackled Europe-wide, that there cannot be just 2 or 3 countries that are destination countries and refugees just pass through and head to 2 or 3 countries. That's not fair on the taxpayers in those 2 or 3 countries. And the other issue is that there needs to be a better integration program in Hungary, that people who are recognized as refugees in Hungary have incentive to learn the language, to be able to contribute. Refugees do not want to be a burden on any taxpayers anywhere in the world. They want to contribute. They want to build a new life. They want to use their skills. They want to support their families. And it's important that they be given the opportunity. And this is one of the aspects that's lacking in the refugee program in Hungary that the UN Refugee Agency would really like to see.
Kitty, there are those who are saying, why is Hungary building another fence if only 165 people passed through or crossed over so far this year, whereas the government says it's precisely because we have one fence that only 165 crossed through, and now that we have a second fence, that'll go down to 0. Which one is true?
You know, the UN Refugee Agency is not the one building the fence. I suggest you ask the government of Hungary. What we're really concerned about is that the asylum system be effective, that people be allowed to enter the country and file their asylum claims, that they be heard fairly, that people who need international protection should get it in Hungary, and that the asylum system function. As I mentioned earlier in this program, the asylum system has been narrowed through physical borders, through legislative restrictions, through dismantlement. We would really like to see the asylum system functioning properly.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I am going to be talking to the Prime Minister's spokesman on Thursday. I want to ask you, Kitty, before I get a final comment from Catherine, I want to ask you, the government naming organizations, NGOs, almost blacklisting them. There's the Hungarian Helsinki Committee and the Civil Liberties Union, TASZ, and they call them representing the interests of illegal migrants against those of Hungary. Kitty, what do you make of that? Is that terribly unfair, and are they in some way inciting against these NGOs?
It's really important that the civil society space in Hungary be preserved, that there are lots of Hungarians we saw in 2015 who came forward to help refugees. In Keleti railway station here in Budapest, there were people who came out. It's really not appropriate to tar every Hungarian. The civil society space needs to stay open for NGOs, for people who of goodwill who want to come forward and help refugees and to exercise their democratic freedoms, their human rights. The Orbán government does not need to control all the space. It's important for citizens to be able to exercise their democratic rights.
Catherine, I'm talking to the Prime Minister's spokesman later in the week. Is there anything in particular you want me to ask him?
Well, you could ask them why they feel so threatened by the arrival of a group of vulnerable people who need international protection. It would also be interesting, on your last point, to ask why they've put forward a law which will restrict the operations of civil society. We're very concerned about this. I think the reaction to the proposals to limit the operation of Central European University have been very positive. And we want to see a similar uprising against the bill on the table to limit the operations of civil society. Hungarian Helsinki Committee is a member of ACRE, it's one of our member organisations, and they are among the last defenders of human rights in Hungary. So widely we would like to see the reaction of EU leaders in support of those who are defending European Union law and European Union values within Hungary.
Okay, I'll pose those questions to him. No doubt. It's been a pleasure talking to both of you, Catherine Woolard and Kitty McKenzie. Thanks so much for joining us.